Welcome to Life Stories, where we share inspiring tales of transformation, resilience, and personal growth. Today, we dive into the journey of Emily, a woman who inherited an old, dilapidated house from a distant relative. What seemed like a burden quickly became the key to unlocking her own strength and uncovering a hidden family legacy. Join us as we explore Emily's emotional journey, her determination to rebuild not just the house, but her life, and the profound lessons she learns along the way. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to begin today's story. It was a cold, gray afternoon when I sat in my cramped one-bedroom apartment, surrounded by unopened bills that I hadn't dared to open yet. I felt a deep sense of defeat settling in my bones. The weight of everything in my life, my recent breakup with Derek, a man I had once believed would be by my side forever, seemed too much to bear. The emotional exhaustion from the past few months had drained me, leaving me with nothing but emptiness. Derek had quickly moved on with Tiffany, a woman who had no qualms about parading her relationship with him in front of me, rubbing it in with every opportunity. There I was, nursing my bruised heart, while they flaunted their happiness. I couldn't blame them. I knew I had failed in that relationship. But that didn't make it any easier to witness. I had never expected much from life, but I certainly hadn't expected it to throw me so low. That was when I got the letter. The envelope had an official seal on it, a strange, almost ancient feeling to it that made my heart race. I didn't know why, but something told me this was important. It was a letter informing me that I had inherited a house from my late Aunt Margaret, a woman I had met only once as a child. The details were vague. No specific instructions on what I was to do with the property. Just a brief notification that I had inherited something that once belonged to her. The news wasn't entirely comforting, it was too vague and distant. And I hadn't had much contact with Margaret. But it was the first glimmer of hope in what felt like an endless dark tunnel. Perhaps it was foolish, but in that moment, I found myself reaching out to Derek. I wasn't sure if it was nostalgia or desperation. But I thought that, for once, he might offer some encouragement. Maybe he would see me for the person I truly was and offer words of support. Instead, when I shared the news with him, all I received was laughter. An old house? Derek scoffed, his voice dripping with mockery. What are you going to do? Play housemaid in that shack? Tiffany, too, joined in with cruel laughter, taunting me with how pathetic it all seemed. That place is falling apart. Tiffany sneered. What a joke. Their words stung deeper than I expected. But strangely, I didn't feel the despair I had grown so accustomed to. Instead, I felt something else rising inside me, a quiet, unshakable resolve. If this old house, with all its creaking wood and peeling paint, was the only chance I had at a fresh start, then I would take it. I didn't need Derek's approval or Tiffany's validation. It was my life, and I would reclaim it. The next day, with a mixture of nerves and excitement, I packed a small bag and boarded a bus to the small town where the house was located. The bus rumbled through the countryside, and as the landscape unfolded before me, my heart was heavy with doubt. Why had Aunt Margaret left the house to me, of all people? What had she seen in me that made her choose me as her heir? I didn't have the answers, but I was determined to find them. As the bus pulled into the small town, I could feel a strange pull toward the house. It was as if I had come home. Although I had never set foot on the property before, the air was thick with humidity as I stepped off the bus. The scent of earth and old wood immediately enveloping me, I followed the overgrown path that led to the house, the trees around it blocking much of the view. The house stood at the end of a long, vine-covered driveway, an old Victorian-style building that looked as if it had once been grand, but now stood as a testament to time's passage. The shutters hung crookedly, the paint had long since peeled away, and the porch sagged under years of neglect. But there was something about the house. Despite its worn exterior, it felt welcoming. There was a dignity in its ruins, as if the walls whispered a story of warmth and love that had once filled the rooms. It called to me, in a way I couldn't explain. Mark, the local real estate agent, greeted me at the front gate. He was tall and kind-eyed, with a calm demeanor that put me at ease. He explained that Aunt Margaret had lived here alone for decades, rarely interacting with the outside world. Most people would sell a place like this, he said, eyeing me curiously. But are you sure you want to stay? I hesitated, the thought of selling the house tempting me in some strange way. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. There was something about this house. Something that felt like it had been waiting for me. I took the keys from Mark's hand, feeling the weight of them in my palm, and said firmly, I think I'll stay. And so, I stepped inside. The house groaned beneath my feet, the floorboards creaking as I wandered through the empty halls. Dust coated every surface, the wallpaper faded and peeling. But I could still see glimpses of the beauty it once held. Intricate woodwork, a grand staircase, and stained glass windows that caught the light and shimmered like rainbows in the dusty air. This house had been abandoned for so long. But I saw it for what it could be. Not what it was. It was a blank canvas, waiting for me to breathe new life into it. It wasn't just a house, it was my chance to reclaim my life. To prove to myself that I could start over, no matter what anyone else thought. But as I started to clean and restore the space, word spread in the small town. Whispers at the cafe and the market suggested that I had lost my mind. Derek and Tiffany, of course, couldn't resist adding fuel to the fire. They mocked me openly, calling the house a haunted shack, a symbol of failure. Their words hurt, but I wasn't the same person I used to be. This house wasn't just a home, it was my journey. A journey that would lead me to discover things I had never imagined. Things that would change everything. The first few weeks in the house were filled with endless cleaning. Every room seemed to hold layers of dust, grime, and memories of a life long gone. The physical work was exhausting. But oddly enough, it gave me a sense of purpose. With each passing day, the house began to feel less like an abandoned relic and more like a place where something new could take root. It was one evening, while I was cleaning the parlor room, that I made a discovery that would change everything. The walls were covered in faded wallpaper, and as I scrubbed away the layers of dust, I noticed something strange. One of the wooden panels on the wall seemed to be slightly loose, as though it had been disturbed before. My curiosity got the best of me, and I fetched a crowbar from the tools that Mark had left me. Gently, I pried the panel away, revealing a hidden compartment behind it. My pulse quickened as I reached inside. There, buried under layers of dust, was a small, old chest. It was heavy and worn, the brass lock tarnished with age. I hesitated for a moment, wondering what secrets it might hold, before I decided to open it. To my surprise, the lock had rusted away, making it easy to open. Inside, I found a collection of journals, letters, and a yellowed map that appeared to be hand-drawn. My hands trembled as I flipped through the journals. The elegant cursive script detailing Aunt Margaret's life. Each entry painted a picture of a woman who had lived in isolation, guarding secrets that she had never shared with anyone. The more I read, the more I learned about Aunt Margaret's life. She had lived in fear, constantly on guard against people who had tried to take advantage of her. There were entries about the people she had trusted and the ones who had betrayed her. But the most intriguing part was the mention of a hidden fortune tied to the house. The details were vague, but the journals seemed to suggest that Aunt Margaret had been protecting something much more valuable than anyone had realized. I carefully examined the map that was tucked inside the chest. It was faded, the lines worn by time, but I could make out certain areas marked with strange symbols. Some areas seemed to correspond with locations on the property, and one location in particular caught my attention, a spot near the basement. The map seemed to point to something hidden there, though it was unclear what exactly. As I sat on the floor, surrounded by the contents of the chest, a feeling of unease settled over me. Aunt Margaret had left these clues for a reason, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she had entrusted me with something important. It was as if she had known that I would be the one to uncover the truth, to protect what she had worked so hard to preserve. I spent hours poring over the journals and the map, piecing together fragments of Aunt Margaret's life. It was clear that she had kept her secrets close to her chest. But there was no doubt in my mind that these discoveries were meant for me. I had inherited more than just a house. I had inherited a legacy. As night fell, I carefully packed the journals and letters back into the chest, hiding it under my bed. I didn't want anyone to know what I had found, not Derek and Tiffany. Not the people in the town. The last thing I wanted was for them to learn about the hidden fortune and try to take it from me. But as I locked the bedroom door and lay in bed, a sense of unease settled over me. Was I being watched? I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was still out there, guarding the secrets of the house. And yet, I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't stop now. I had to uncover the truth, no matter what the cost. The following days passed in a blur of dust, sweat, and determination. I spent hours scrubbing, cleaning, and trying to make sense of the mess Aunt Margaret had left behind. But even as I worked, the whispers of the small town seemed to grow louder. I could feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on me. Everyone seemed to have an opinion about my decision to stay in the old house. Most people thought I was crazy to try to bring it back to life. It didn't help that Derek and Tiffany made no effort to hide their disdain for me. Whenever I ventured into town, I'd hear them laughing behind my back, their voices dripping with mockery. She thinks she's some kind of a fixer-upper queen now, Tiffany had said one afternoon as I overheard her talking to a shopkeeper. That house is nothing but a haunted shack. Derek had joined in, his laugh cruel and dismissive. Yeah, it suits her, doesn't it? Broken and pathetic, he said. Their words stung, more than I cared to admit. But I refused to let them see how much it hurt. This house, this place, was mine, and their opinions no longer mattered. One evening, while I was resting on the porch after a long day of cleaning, I overheard two of my neighbors gossiping as they walked past. She's wasting her time, one of them muttered. That place is falling apart. She should just sell it and leave. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to confront them. Instead, I let their words wash over me, drawing strength from their doubt. For so long, I had been underestimated. It wasn't going to happen again. The house might have been abandoned by the world, but it had chosen me. And I wasn't about to give up on it, or on myself. Back at the house, I worked tirelessly, focusing on small improvements. I started with the front rooms, scrubbing away years of grime and dust. The physical labor was exhausting, but it gave me something to focus on, something to hold on to in the midst of everything else. As I worked, I thought about Aunt Margaret's life. Why had she chosen to live in such isolation? Why had she left everything to me? The questions lingered in my mind, driving me to push through my doubts and continue my work. Then, one day, Derek and Tiffany showed up at my doorstep, uninvited and with fake smiles plastered on their faces. We thought we'd drop by and see how you're doing, Derek said, his voice dripping with feigned concern. Tiffany chimed in, her voice sickly sweet. This house must be a lot of work for you. We could help if you want. I knew exactly what they were up to. They weren't here to help, they were here to assess the house for themselves. To see if there was something of value that they could take from me. I resisted the urge to slam the door in their faces, though everything in me screamed to do so. Instead, I forced a polite smile and let them in. They wandered through the house, commenting on the architecture, and making snide remarks about its condition. Tiffany seemed especially interested in the kitchen, asking me questions about my plans. Have you thought about selling it? She asked sweetly, her tone probing. A place like this could fetch a decent price. Even in this condition, I stiffened at her words. I knew what they were trying to do. They wanted me to sell, to give up on the house and its secrets. But I wasn't going to let them win. No, thank you, I'm fine, I said, my voice firm. When Derek tried to open a locked door leading to the basement, I stepped in between him and the door. That's off limits, I said sharply, my voice leaving no room for argument. Derek smirked but stepped back, his eyes flashing with irritation. It was clear he wasn't giving up on his goal to get something out of me, whether it was the house or its hidden treasures. As they left, I knew that they wouldn't stop. Their visit had confirmed what I already suspected. They were after something more than just my company. They were after the house. And they wouldn't rest until they had it. That night, as I double-checked every lock on the doors and windows, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching me. The tension in the air was thick, and I knew that I had to be careful. The house was mine, but I had to protect it, and everything it held, from those who would try to take it from me. I had no intention of letting Derek and Tiffany win. The weeks that followed were both grueling and fulfilling. As I continued cleaning, my hands became calloused, and my back ached. But every hour of work seemed to push me further away from the person I used to be, the timid, unsure woman who had once been mocked and overlooked. Now, with each new layer of grime removed, I could feel myself becoming stronger. The house was beginning to take shape again. Just as I was. The more I worked, the more I realized that the house was a reflection of my own journey. The crumbling walls, the peeling paint, the sagging porch, these were the scars of years of neglect and abandonment. Yet, just beneath the surface, there was beauty waiting to be uncovered. The intricate woodwork, the faded yet charming stained glass windows that caught the sunlight in a dazzling display. These were the parts of the house that whispered its past. Much like my own heart, buried beneath layers of hurt, was now longing to find a way forward. But despite the progress I made, the negativity from the outside world continued to creep in. Derek and Tiffany's cruel remarks still echoed in my mind, and the townspeople's whispered gossip only seemed to grow louder. "She's never going to make it," I overheard someone say at the local cafe. "That place is falling apart. And she's wasting her time." Those words, spoken with such certainty, made my chest tighten, but rather than letting them break me, they fueled the fire inside me. I was determined to prove everyone wrong. This house wasn't just a place, it was a symbol of my new beginning, of my strength. And no one was going to take that from me. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day of scrubbing away layers of dust and grime, I decided to take a break on the porch. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden light over the property, and for a moment, I allowed myself to feel at peace. But it didn't last long. As I sat there, I overheard a conversation between two neighbors who were walking by. "She's wasting her time," one of them muttered. "That house is beyond saving. She should just sell it and leave." I clenched my fists, the anger bubbling up inside me. It was as if the whole town was determined to see me fail, to watch me crumble under the weight of their judgments. But I refused to let their doubt dictate my future. I had come here for a reason, and I wasn't going to let anyone convince me otherwise. Back in the house, I resumed my work with renewed determination. I focused on the front rooms first, scrubbing away years of grime, wiping down the worn surfaces, and sweeping away the dust that seemed to cover everything. It wasn't glamorous work, but it felt necessary. Each small improvement felt like a victory, like I was reclaiming not only the house but also myself. One evening, as I worked late into the night, I noticed something strange. Beneath one of the worn floorboards in the parlor, I felt a slight shift, as if something was hidden underneath. My heart raced as I carefully pried the board up, revealing a small hidden compartment. Inside, I found more journals and a bundle of old letters, along with a peculiar key. I held the key in my hand, my fingers trembling as I wondered what it could unlock. The key had to be important. Aunt Margaret had left it here for a reason. But what door or hidden space did it belong to? The questions swirled in my mind, and a sense of excitement mixed with unease settled in my chest. Whatever secrets this house was hiding, I knew that I had to uncover them. But the discovery also made me realize something important. The house was more than just a property. It was a treasure trove of memories, of untold stories, and of a legacy waiting to be unlocked. Aunt Margaret had trusted me to protect it, to preserve it. The weight of that responsibility was heavy, but it also gave me a sense of purpose that I had never known before. With the key in my hand, I felt a renewed sense of determination. The house had chosen me, and I wasn't going to let anyone, not even Derek and Tiffany, take it away from me. I would uncover the truth behind Aunt Margaret's life, and whatever lay hidden within these walls, I would protect it with everything I had. As the days passed, I began to feel a shift within myself. The woman who had once been unsure and broken was slowly being replaced by someone stronger, more confident. The house was no longer just a building, it was a reflection of my own transformation. And with every room I restored, I felt more and more at home in it. The house, once abandoned and forsaken, was now becoming my sanctuary, my place of strength. The work ahead would be difficult, but I was ready for it. I had a new life to build, And this house, my inheritance, was going to be the foundation of that future. It was no longer just a house, it was my home. My story. And no one could take that away from me. As the final touches were put on the house, I couldn't help but reflect on everything that had led me here. The house, once a symbol of my pain and rejection, had become a testament to my resilience. It wasn't just the physical restoration that had transformed me, it was the emotional journey I had taken. Uncovering hidden parts of myself as I unearthed Aunt Margaret's secrets. The journals, the maps, the treasures, they had all led me to this point, where I had finally learned to stand on my own, to embrace who I was, and to protect the legacy entrusted to me. Derek and Tiffany had long since faded from my life, their mockery no longer holding any power over me. I had proven to myself, and to the world, that I was capable of more than I had ever imagined. The house was not just restored, it was reborn. And so was I. As I stood on the porch, watching the sunset cast a warm glow over the property, I felt a deep sense of peace. This house, this legacy, was now a part of me. It wasn't just a place, it was home. Filled with memories, history, and love. I had finally found where I belonged. And I knew that I was ready for whatever the future held. Thank you for following this journey with me. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to keep up with new videos of life stories. Your support means the world to us. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories that touch the heart and soul.